I think it's important to actually set a deadline so that you can measure progress according to time. But I think that it is asinine to assume for a moment that you can possibly guess your actual accurate ability to achieve something you've never done before.
Here we are on the cusp of 2022. 2021 is over. And Kris, you're a guy that tends to get what he wants. Did you get what you wanted in 2021?
Every single time is what I wish was really the answer. Years ago, I was off all the time. These days, I'm pretty accurate. Like, I feel like the lessons that I've learned in life have brought me kind of closer into this concept of reality, where my perception is not always as wildly skewed and taking me totally in the left field of there's nothing worse than you think something's possible and you go after it and you're like, oh, I was only off by 93%. Like, there was no shot. There was no way that was ever going to work out. These days we are, and we as an organization, we're living within a lot more reality. It's pretty cool.
We have good data too.
Yeah, we got good data. You have to have that to measure.
Kris, when I first started working with you, there's something that impressed me. What was it, 2008, 2009, that book, The Secret, that movie came out that everybody watched. It's like, if I just sit around thinking about what I want, it comes into my life. And when I first listened to you speak on sort of this topic, you were like, you had additional ideas around that opened my eyes to the role that we play in creating the things that we want. And I hesitate to use the term goals because goals is just very tired, but you have a system for
manifesting.
And you use the term manifesting.
Yeah.
And I want to dive into that a little bit. It's been a while since we've talked about manifesting.
Yeah, first of all, the whole concept of the law of attraction, it's real. I mean, Nightingale said it earlier in far simpler terms, which is you get what you think about most, right? Like, whatever you sit and dwell on, what people don't understand is the way the scientific functionality of the brain. This amazing supercomputer literally takes in billions of bits of information every second, but it can only process a few hundred. So what is it processing? Well,
the things you tell it matter.
It's the things that have impacted it the most, often in a negative way. Our traumas in life, have skewed our perception to say, only look for this. I think the easiest example is if you have ever been abused by a person, man or woman, if you've ever been abused physically, mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually, if you've been abused, by a particular sex, let's just say that a man was really hurt from a previous relationship where he felt that he was verbally abused. His perception when he looks at all females in general is this looming question mark. Is she going to verbally abuse me? Is she going to verbally abuse me?
Watching for it always.
And all you're looking for is verbal abuse, verbal abuse, verbal abuse, verbal abuse. And so we get what we think about most. And you know what we tend to think about? Unfortunately, from an unconscious state, we tend to think about what we don't want because most people don't know what they do want. I ask people all the time, what do you want? And they literally look at me stupefied like, and they can't figure it out. What do you want? But the moment you say, man, what are the undesirables? And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get another bill. I don't want this thing to come up. If this divorce thing happens, if that thing happens, if this custody thing, this business thing, and it blew up my face and I got sued. Our unconscious mind is so honed in, fearful of the saber-toothed tiger from 2 million years ago jumping out and ripping our spine out. And we live our life that way. So because our perception is honed in this activated reticular system is only refreshing what we're most afraid of, guess what we tend to see? Exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And we get all these warning signs.
And if we don't see it, we create it.
Well, and that's the thing is that's what law of attraction really means. It means that all possibilities are out there. You're just going to move in the direction of what you're looking for. And so I always tell people, if you don't know what you want, then whatever you don't want becomes the want. If you are stooped in bills and you're constantly stressed about money, there was a time in my life when I was, then all I was telling my brain to look for was more evidence that I was behind the financial 8 ball, that I couldn't afford something, that an unexpected bill was going to come up. And before I knew how to budget, I knew how to budget for my monthlies. But did you know that you have quarterly bills? Did you know that you have semi-annual bills? Do you know that you have annual things that come up, like car registration? Your check to check, car registration comes up. It's not a lot of money, but maybe it's $135 and you're thinking, just when I thought I was getting ahead, I'm behind. I'm like, no, you're unconscious. That stupid bill comes up every single year. You're just too dumb to put it into a system. You're fully capable. Grow up. Like, you need to become more conscious. You need to become more aware. You can plan for the unplannable. You can start planning for the things that put you behind the eight ball, because for the most part, nothing really comes out of left field until you wake up. And then you can start seeing it coming from a mile away. And I think that we are meant to go on a journey, Carson, of how do we go from less conscious to conscious? How do we become more aware? How do we become more present? And inevitably, part of that really comes down to this: what do you want? Don't tell me what you don't want. Tell me what you want. And until you know what you want in your health, in your relationships, with you or God, with your finances, then you're not really the author of your life, are you? You're the reactor instead of the creator. You're just literally letting life happen to you. And that is victimhood.
Can I play devil's advocate here?
Sure.
But Kris, you're just one of those guys that tends to be in the right place at the right time and knows the right thing to say. I'm not like that. I could never create everything I want.
Dude, I was at the gym with my buddy this morning. We've been lifting for 2.5 years. And then over the weekend, we offered him a job post. And he accepted it, and I'm super excited, for him to come and work with me. We grew 100 employees last year. We're in a really great, cool growth mode. And I was having this conversation with him because he's like, man, what should I wear, and what should my clothes be like, or what should my hair? And I said, well, have you ever looked at an influencer or someone that you really respect, and for the most part, notice they seem to be really well put together? Like, there's not anyone out there that has their own TV show that isn't very well put together.
Right.
It's weird. It's like their hair looks right, their makeup or their face looks right, or it looks like if they had some work done, or they take care of themselves, or they work out, or there's clothes that they wear. Or, man, do they just hit the barber for every freaking day? How do they look so put together? When you fast forward to my pictures literally from 15 years ago, I didn't have a concept of style. I didn't have a concept of how to do my hair. I couldn't grow facial hair. I had hair growing up here on my temples and in between my eyebrows that could have led to a unibrow. And there's these added hairs over here. And I found myself the other day talking to my buddy. I'm like, bro, you need to get your grooming game on. He said, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, just look at you. I took a picture of his face. And I said, look at all these hairs that are out of place. And I was messing with him a little bit for fun. But the point is that when I look at myself today versus 15 years ago, I look like, listen, whether you like me or not, I'm put together. Whether you like me or not, this is intentionally me. There's nothing that you can probably bring up to me that I haven't made some decision on that I don't already have some type of awareness on. And I think we're on this awareness journey. And so this whole devil's advocate, it's like, well, what do you really want? If you don't know what you want, you're going to get what you don't want. And that's what you will attract. That's what you have to attract, which means that most people are attracting more of what they've hated the most of in their life.
For sure.
Reincarnation with a different face and a different name and a different circumstance.
So what next? Let's say I sit down and I do write down everything that I really want.
That's the first step. If you really want to become the master of manifesting, step one, and I'll frame it up with 5 steps. The first step is you have to know what you want detailed. And here's what I mean. You should stop living your life. You should cancel as many appointments as you can and use all of your free time for one purpose: sitting and meditating until you can articulate what you want so specifically with data that you'll know the moment you get there. So for example, don't tell me you want to feel healthier. Don't tell me you want to eat healthier.
It's a moving target.
That's an idea. What does it even mean? What does it even mean? But if you make a very specific meal plan, or if you make an exercise plan, or if you address, if you're telling me, I get really, really bad sleep, I'm like, great. Then take melatonin at 10 p.m. and make yourself sleep till 6. And maybe you'll suck at it for only 5 hours, and then the next night 6 hours, and then 3 months from now you're actually getting 8 hours of sleep. You have to be able to measure where you're at to where you want to go, and it's got to be measured on the daily. And so when I say know what you want, specifically speaking about your relationship with yourself to the world, knowing who you are to you, God, your significant other, your children, but then out to your work family, or then from there, professional colleagues or even strangers. Who are you in relation to all of these spheres of relationship? And so that's one thing. Another one is finance. What are your financial goals? You should be able to break that apart by your income goals as well as your net worth goals, as far as maybe tax shelter goals, if you're doing really well financially. With your health, you should be able to break that apart by what does your body need? Do you have to do something to improve your health? What about your nutrition? What about your exercise? How do you maximize energy? And so if you take a look at those 3 areas of life, health, wealth, and relationships, then there's probably 3, 4, or 5 subcategories for each one of them, which really means there's about 12 to 15 key distinction areas in life that matter most to have goals in. Unless you can give me 2-page, front and back, single-spaced write-up on all of those distinctions and know exactly where you're at and measurably what you want to get to, then you really don't know what you want. And I think that you're just wasting life, because every day that you live without knowing that just means that you want more of what you got yesterday. And the sad thing is you probably have goals and hopes of what you want. You'll never get them. How can you get what you don't understand? Mm-hmm. How can you get what you can't articulate? How can you get what you don't measure? It's not possible. So it's number one, you have to know what you want to that level. Once you have that figured out, then the second thing you have to do is you have to have a way to practice getting it as if it's happened. You have to practice getting what you want. There's only one place where that can happen.
Yeah, how do you do that?
It's here in your mind. I call it your mind palace. It's visualization. It's been called so many things.
So you're not
through
talking
the
about
ages.
like finding a rich person and be like, can I hang out in your house just to practice being a millionaire?
No, I'm talking about a place where everything you want can always happen exactly the way you want. Stanford study did this with basketball. They took a pro team and they had some of them practice free throw shots in the off season and some just mentally practice. Guess who got better?
I mean, I'm guessing the mentally one
because they couldn't mess up. They made every single shot. When Gretzky says that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, in your mind, you can make every freaking shot that you take. So in your mind, you're practicing visualizing and connecting a feeling of success to it, just as if it happened in the real world. Wayne Dyer challenged me to this once in one of his audio programs. I was listening to Wayne, and he took me through this visualization where he said, close your eyes and envision the thing that you want. And at that time, i8 was a concept car that they were about to put in production. And I'm like, okay, I'm on the list. I want an i8. And he wasn't wrong. I could envision myself. I'd seen the commercial so many times. I downloaded the music. And I could turn the music on, and with my eyes closed, I could see myself driving the car. I could see myself in the commercial. And it moved a tear. Like it was emotional for me. I loved the full expression of what that vehicle was. I loved it so much I got the next year when they came out with the convertible version, I bought it. And I remember after being on the waiting list for 2 years, I had this funny feeling. My wife was out of town in California on a girls' trip. And I was with the kids and had this funny feeling. Your car's at BMW 2 cities away. So I called them up and I just said, hey, I've been on the waiting list for 2 years, just kind of curious, like how's it going? And they said, that is so weird. An hour ago, we just had an i8, and I don't think you're at the top of the list, but you're on the phone. Do you want to come check it out? So I put my kids in the car. We went over to the dealership, and they said, and it was exactly the trim that I wanted. It was white it was all black with the blue trim on the first one that I got. And I was so excited. I said, I'm getting it. Can I test drive it? They said, no, you can drive it after you buy it. I'm like, great. So I bought it, and I came back that night. And when I was buying it, I had just finished, and I was going to drive the car home. So I'm sitting down with the car salesman, and he's helping me set up, pair my phone, which by the way has thousands of songs in it. And as I'm sitting there in the car, like I had done so many times in my mind, the moment the phone was paired, a song automatically came on. And it was the dubstep music that I'd custom crafted, the commercials music that I had fallen in love with, and I sat there and I just cried. Because I felt like I had envisioned this moment so many times, and of course I was going to have it in reality. I knew that I was. So you can visualize things so meaningfully that you can't discern the difference between having it or not. So there's a way for you to have a piece of anything that you want that is years from happening, weeks from happening, decades from happening. There's a way to envision it now. So that's the second step, is you have to practice. And for me, I tell most people, you should practice 5-10 minutes a day. It doesn't take long if you're good at visualizing. Get yourself in a quiet place, close your eyes, put on some background music that if it's useful for you. And your job isn't to be neutral. Your job is to envision yourself with the thing that you want as if it's already happened, and then assign an emotion to it that is befitting. For me, that car was an expression of joy. So I felt joy. Sometimes that joy would move me to tears. Over the years, I've envisioned myself with all sorts of manner of wealth that I've been generating, or my relationships looking the way that I want them to between my wife and myself, or a business that I wanted to exit from and sell, or, and most of the things that I've envisioned, I've been able to get because your brain can't tell the difference between the conscious and the subconscious. It's like having a nightmare, right? Everyone here can identify with having a nightmare, right? You have a nightmare, and when you wake up, you don't know if it's over. You literally have to pause and like look around, pinch yourself like, was that really just a dream? And the moment you realize it's a dream, you're relieved because your waking state and your sleep state, consciously, you can't tell the difference. Your subconscious can't. So basically, I practice every day getting what I want in my mind palace through that meditation. And it's joyful. I love it. Brings me great joy. The third step then is you have to act in some small way. And I always tell people, take the smallest action possible, but it must be every day. And you're not allowed to go to bed until you've done something. So if my goal were to double my income this year, then I would literally meditate and just ask, what's one small thing I can do today to grow my income? Ooh, send that person an email. That could lead to an opportunity that leads to an increase of income. Ooh, that person said they wanted to learn guitar. I can teach them, see if they're ready to pay, $30 a session for lessons. Ooh, so you have to do something every single day, no matter what. Day doesn't end until you've done something. But it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be Herculean. It's more important that you do something. This is why I always tell people, do something small. You want to write a book? Don't have a goal to write a chapter. That's stupid. Don't have a goal to write a page. That's dumb. Don't have a goal to write a paragraph. That's too hard. Just write one word. The smallest thing. Why? Because it's actually about your integrity. It's building confidence that you have faith and that you're willing to take action on it. And when you do the smallest thing and you can look back at the end of the day and say, I worked on that for real, then you have a sense of accomplishment and it builds confidence that you are a manifester. So the third step is you got to take action. So now we figured out exactly what we want, datable, measurable. We've been, number 2, practicing it mentally in our head. Number 3, you have to take the smallest of actions, but no matter what, an action every single day to further it. And, Tony Robbins likes to say that we underestimate what we can achieve in a decade, but we overestimate what we can achieve in a year. The reality is successful people think in decades. And if you develop the habit of small steps forward reliably every day, no matter what, you're going to wake up a year from now and be like, oh my gosh, look at what we did. You're going to wake up a decade from now and not even recognize yourself. You'll have achieved so much because you're in the habit of action every day. That is an expression of faith. And I don't mean it in a religious sense, right? Like faith is this, we believe in things we can't see kind of thing. Well, you can see your visualization in your mind. It's not yet in physical reality. And for you to believe that it's real, there's only one way to know if what someone says is true. Show me on their schedule. Mm-hmm. Show me in their expenses. If you haven't spent money or time, then claim all you want. I don't believe you. Tell me you love your spouse, but you won't go on a date night? You won't take her to the movies? You won't set time aside with her? Don't tell me you love her. What is that love without an expression of time or resource? So you have to take action.
So that's number 3.
Number 4, this is a requirement rather than an action. Once you set it in motion, and this is where you have to be very careful what you're willing to believe in. Once you set it in motion, you are not allowed an arbitrary deadline to result in a lack of belief of ability.
Explain that.
I want to become a billionaire next year. Year goes by. I didn't become a billionaire. I suck. I must not be worthy. I'm not good enough. There was a problem with this or that. Victimhood, blah, blah, blah story.
So you're saying don't put stipulations on when it can...
I think it's important to have time. I think it's important to actually set a deadline so that you can measure progress according to time. But I think that it is asinine to assume for a moment that you can possibly guess your actual accurate ability to achieve something you've never done before. I think that's assuming a level of godhood that we don't possess. I think that most people will set a deadline for something that they've never gotten before in that space of time, and if they don't get it, they turn into 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
They cry babies. They're little brats. And we're brats when it comes to manifesting without understanding that everything has a proper amount of time to gestate. And the only time you'll know how long it takes to gestate until you get it. If you want something you've never had, how dare you arrogantly suppose that you know how long it will actually take to get it? How could you know such a thing? The nuances are so complicated. The micro distinctions are not even understood. You can't comprehend it. until you actually get there. Do you have to fail 3 times or 3,000 times? So for me, my 4th stipulation is I'll believe it until I get it. And I will set deadlines. And if I don't achieve it by the deadline, the only purpose of the deadline is not to get it by then, it's to measure progress. So for example, let's just say, this year I want to double my income. I'm at 80,000, I want to go to 160,000. And I want 1 year to do it. I get to the end of the year and I went from 80,000 to 100,000. I hit 25% of my goal. Well, that's useful information. Instead of getting bummed and pissed, I can say, oh, that's interesting. All the choices that I made this year that I hoped would increase my income from 80,000 to 160,000 only increased it by 20,000. What does that mean? What am I learning? Ooh, maybe I need to make different choices. Maybe I need to seek bigger opportunities. Maybe I need to swing for the fence. Maybe I actually need to put in more time. Maybe I shouldn't have done that one thing. That's all valuable learning. The only purpose of having a deadline is so you can learn something, not so you can judge yourself. The 5th step, I think the most important step, once you've gotten this far, the only way you're really going to take consistent action according to your arbitrary deadlines so that you can gather data and learn wisdom is by painting yourself into a corner, by giving yourself an accountability partner with a really, really, really nasty consequence if you're not true to what you said you would be. In other words, the consequence is not for whether you do or don't hit a goal by the target date. It's based on whether or not you stuck to the plan. Because integrity in the plan is more important than getting the result. And what you learn from executing a plan is more important than ever getting the result. Because it means that if I start all over again, but I know how to predictably now produce a new result, I can get it over and over and over again, which is what I really want. So I'm valuing the lesson more than anything else. So, someone says, well, I want to lose 50 pounds this year. Great. You could say, here's your punishment if you 365 days from now haven't hit that. But instead, I'd rather say, no, this is the consequence if by the end of each check-in week, you haven't done X, Y, and Z. Maybe your commitment was, I'll go to the gym 4 times. I got to the end of this week and I only went 3 times. Initiate the consequence. And then keep going. And the consequence should be something sucky. Like I had to go from an amazing Apple iPhone to an Android.
Don't do it.
Horrible.
Don't do it.
Horrible. Sorry, I just threw that out there to get half of you hating me. I love you. But it could be something like if I ditch on my meal plan, maybe I have to shave my head. Maybe I gotta make my hair pink. I might look good with pink hair.
You might.
Right?
You could probably pull it off, but don't shave your head.
Part of accountability means you got to tell the world.
Yeah.
Don't tell a person. Tell every person in every circle that you hang out with. It would be best if you could tell your entire family, all your friends, and all your work colleagues. Anywhere you go, whatever circle of friends you have wherever you go, whoever your colleagues or employees or whatever, you should let them all know exactly what's on the line. And if you're really brave, you should just announce it on social media. Every week I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to do that for this entire year. And if I don't, this is going to happen. And when it happens, I'm going to do it on social media. My buddy said that if he didn't hit a certain sales quota every week, his consequence was eating, I think it was 12 tomatoes.
He hates tomatoes.
And tomatoes makes him throw up. And so there's this video online of him eating tomatoes and throwing up every single one of them.
Yep, gagging.
And guess what?
The whole thing.
He stopped missing his sales goals.
Yep.
Because if the consequence is real and it's meaningful, and there's some people that criticize that. They're like, Kris, you should have consequences that are rooted in love and self-expansion. Rewards, like go buy yourself something. I'm like, I have no qualms with the reward. But rewards in the beginning, until you learn discipline, they don't work nearly as well as a consequence rooted in fear. In other words, I think fear has a very appropriate place in our ecosystem of growth. It is important. It keeps us from driving off of ledges. It keeps babies from falling off of tables at some point. We make better life-saving decisions with fear. And there's parts of fear I hate and I'll do everything to avoid. And there's parts of fear that I leverage for my good. This is one of them.
Carrot and the stick.
Yep. 5 steps, manifesting.
And this is what you do, and it works.
Yeah, I've been doing it for years. I love sharing it with people. I had the opportunity last week to share it with a whole bunch of our management team and some of my friends and high-level clients, and just wanted them to just to know, like, this is like, a goal sounds like such a trivial assignment for what this is. I believe that God gave us literally the spark of the divine to create within. Life is a co-creation. We are meant to finish building the rest of this tapestry we call earth life. We're here sent to school to learn, to grow. And for me, that means developing discipline. That means growth. Whatever isn't growing is dying. And that's really all the goal is. It's really just an assignment of creation. And I'm challenging myself to literally just live life at my potential. That's what I really want. I think that if there is that moment where I get to stand before my Creator and justify my existence, what I want to report back on, it really comes down to what was my potential and how close did I get to it? Or did I keep meeting it so it expanded and became a moving target that I kept chasing? And the more I chased, the stronger I grew, the more successful I became.
Is there anything that you are working on manifesting in 2022?
Of course.
That you're willing to share with us?
Well, I'll start by sharing this. I don't do a stupid annual resolution thing.
Okay.
Goals is a daily for me. I review them every single day in my mind palace. I am always with them. I always have something I'm striving for in my relationships, in my body, in my finances. And I always know what all of them are, but not just a year out, some of them 1 or 2 decades out. Because if we become what we think about most, then our destiny is what we imagine for ourselves decades from now. So I imagine where I want to be decades from now. A decade from now, for example, I want to be the entrepreneur's economist. I want to understand every industry of business so that I can competently speak to it and be one of the most highly sought after consultants on the planet for understanding global industry. That's a goal of mine. I also have a goal 5 years from now that all of my combined social media is producing 50 million views a day. It's like a Super Bowl every single day. That's how many people watch. I've got, in April this year, I'm going to be doing a physique competition, which means I'm going to subject my body to, standing in board shorts in front of a large audience and asking people really just to judge my pants off. Wow, that left oblique looks like it could use some work. Your lats are a little bit overdeveloped. You need to work on your cannibals, your vascularity, like you need to pop a piece of chocolate to get those to pop a little bit. Like, the body's a fascinating science to me. I love understanding it and breaking it down. I've got goals in my relationship with my wife. We've got, goals in our parenting and in our children's education. We've got goals in our foundation of how much we want to be able to give back this year. And I spend time every single day refreshing my awareness of what I'm thinking about intentionally, the emotion that I'm tying to it, developing deeper faith and conviction, my stick-with-itness. No matter what, I'm here till it happens.
That's some powerful stuff, Kris.
Works.
Every time?
Of course, because you're not allowed to give up until you get it.
So it must work.
So in 2009, I declared I'm going to be a billionaire. 2009, it was January 15th. I stood up in front of a large audience. I held over my head a dollar bill, first dollar bill that my dad made when he came to America from Germany. And I declared my plan and what I was going to do and that I was going to be a billionaire. A lot of people bought into that vision. It was 13 years ago. I'm not a billionaire yet.
Still on the path?
I believe I'll be there in 3 years.
Oh, there you go.
Yep. At 45. Not allowed to give up on it because people don't understand. To make a resolution or to create a goal and then ditch it a week later, 2 weeks later, all you're doing is confirming that you can't, that you're undependable, you're not reliable, and that you're weak. And that is a far greater danger than achieving a goal. There's more to lose from having a goal and not having a system to pursue it like I've shared today. It would be better not to have one in the first place. And most people don't understand that. Most people, when they're like, oh, I'm not a goal person, what they're really saying is, oh yeah, there was a time in my life when I tried and I failed and I tried and I failed and I tried and failed and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, yes, because you didn't have a system. I've got 2 guys on my management team. One, they've been with me for less than 6 months working on their goal of losing 100 pounds. 2 days ago, Ryan texted me and said, Kris, I've lost 80 pounds. He's also put on, last I checked, a month ago, 13 pounds of muscle, which means his delta is 93 of 100 pounds. Measurable. And it's like, wow, why is he really sticking with it? I don't know, something about social media produced about this, putting him on a podcast,
Accountability.
sharing the goal with millions of people all around the globe, bringing in his family and his friends, having him take his shirt off in front of all of them, commit to never eat pizza again. Like, I commit him over and over and over again and paint him into the tightest corner. And guess what?
Results.
It's really weird. He's getting a result. It's really simple. You find something undesirable enough that you don't want in your life. Find something you don't want more than the thing that you do want. Set that up as your consequence. You won't fail. You won't fail. It's this natural unspoken law that we all respond to. It's this law of compensation. And it's that at the end of the day, we will hierarchically make choices according to our payoffs and our consequences.
Yeah.
So is your consequences nasty enough? I put my buddy on stage and I said, bro, you got to lose 50 pounds by that date, or you have to give me half your company. He wouldn't commit. He could have done it, but you know why he didn't commit?
Because he didn't actually want it.
He's too scared. But if your consequence doesn't really genuinely scare you, if it doesn't pose real risk,
it tells you how you feel about your goal.
And you may not have the motivation to actually get it.
Well, Kris, this is super enlightening because at this time of the year, you know, there's millions and millions of people out there that are setting goals. But I don't think anybody's doing it this way.
Well, if you follow all 5 of these steps, I have found it consistently to work over and over and over again. As long as you enact the last piece, just tell the world, let them know. Every circle that you're in, let them know, and let them know what the consequences, and let them know what you're going for. Literally, you're going to feel like the biggest piece of trash on the planet if you give up on it. And you won't. You won't allow yourself to. There's too much on the line with all the people that you know, love, and trust.